I found out on a Tuesday. Not because I was looking. Not because I suspected. But because his phone wouldn't stop vibrating on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. The screen lit up again and again, buzzing against the granite like it was desperate to be seen. I wasn't the kind of wife who checked her husband's phone. I never had a reason to. 6 years of marriage builds a kind of quiet trust, the boring, steady kind. The kind where you know each other's coffee order and which side of the bed hurts their back less. But that night something felt off. Maybe it was the third vibration in under a minute. Maybe it was the way his name, Ethan, had felt distant lately, like he was slowly stepping out of our life without making a sound. The screen lit up again, and I saw her name, Lila. The yellow heart felt louder than the vibration. I stared at it longer than I should have. My brain tried to make it harmless. Coworker, client, someone from the gym. Then another message preview slid across the screen. I can't keep hiding this forever. I'm almost 12 weeks. My fingers went cold. 12 weeks. I didn't even realize I had picked up the phone until it was already in my hand. The passcode screen stared back at me. I knew it. Of course I knew it. It was our anniversary. The irony made me almost laugh. The shower was still running upstairs. I could hear him humming faintly, completely unaware that the life we built was cracking open downstairs. I unlocked the phone. The messages loaded instantly. Pictures, doctor appointment confirmations, screenshots of ultrasound images, conversations that were far too intimate to misunderstand. Are you going to tell her? Not yet. I need time. I can't raise this baby alone, Ethan. Baby. The word blurred. I scrolled further up. It hadn't started recently. It had been going on for almost a year. Business trips that were never about work. Late meetings that weren't meetings. The nights he came home smelling like a cologne he didn't own. Felt stupid. Not angry yet. Just stupid. Upstairs, the shower turned off. I locked the phone and set it back exactly where it had been. My heart was beating so hard I thought I might pass out. I walked to the sink and gripped the edge of it, staring at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. I looked normal. That was the strangest part. My hair was tied back in a messy bun. I was wearing his old college sweatshirt. Pasta was still simmering on the stove. How could everything look so normal when nothing was? Footsteps creaked on the stairs. I didn't turn around. He walked into the kitchen, towel around his waist, rubbing his hair dry. "Smells good," he said casually. "I'm starving." I watched his reflection instead of his face. Did he look different? Guilty? Nervous? Well, he looked like my husband. He walked past me, kissed the side of my head, and reached for a glass. "Long day," he sighed. "Can't wait to just relax." I almost broke right there. But instead I said the most dangerous thing a person can say when they know the truth. "Hey," I said quietly. "Who's Lila?" The glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Just for half a second. But I saw it. Then he forced a small laugh. "Lila. A marketing team. Why?" I turned slowly to face him. "She says she's almost 12 weeks. Silence. The kind that swallows a room whole." His eyes shifted. Not confused, not questioning, calculating. "You went through my phone?" he asked. There it was. Not denial. Not outrage that I was wrong. Just accusation. "She's pregnant, Ethan." My voice didn't even sound like mine. He set the glass down carefully, like sudden movements might make this worse. "It's not what you think." I felt something inside me snap at that line. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a clean break. "She sent you ultrasound pictures," I said. "There's nothing to misinterpret." He ran a hand through his damp hair. "It just happened. Just happened. Like rain. Like traffic. Like forgetting to buy milk. For a year." Yes. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Felt strangely calm. My body had switched into survival mode. My chest hurt but my mind was sharp. "Are you in love with her?" Yes. Another pause. "I didn't plan for this," he said instead. "That's not what I asked." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a second I saw guilt flicker across his face. I care about her, he admitted. The room tilted. Such a soft word for something so violent. And the baby, I whispered. He swallowed. It's mine. I nodded slowly, like he had just told me something small. Like the weather forecast. Inside everything was burning. Were you ever going to tell me? Yes. I was trying to figure out how, he said. I didn't want to hurt you. Actually laughed. You didn't want to hurt me. My voice cracked then. Not from weakness, from disbelief. You've been building another life while sleeping in our bed. He stepped closer. It didn't mean anything at first. That hurt more than if he had said he loved her. So it was just convenience. Just boredom. Just opportunity. What does she think? Yes. She wants me to leave, he admitted quietly. Course she does. And you? That was the real question. The one hanging between us like a loaded gun. He didn't answer immediately. And in that silence, I understood everything. He wasn't fighting for us. He wasn't begging. He wasn't panicking about losing me. He was deciding. Like I was one option. Like our marriage was a choice on a checklist. Something inside me hardened. You should go, I said. His eyebrows pulled together. What? You should go to her. He looked stunned. You're just throwing 6 years away. No, I said softly. You did that. The words felt steady. Stronger than I expected. I won't share my husband, I continued. And I won't beg someone to choose me. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Because there wasn't an argument. Upstairs, our bedroom light was still on. The bed we bought together. The framed wedding photo on the dresser. All of it suddenly felt like a museum of a life that didn't exist anymore. When? I asked quietly. When what? When were you going to tell me you were going to be a father again? His shoulders sagged. I don't know. He nodded. Pack a bag, I said. Tonight. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe I didn't either. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity in that moment. The worst part wasn't that he had a girlfriend. The worst part wasn't even that she was pregnant. It was realizing that the man I trusted most had already left me long before I found out. And I had been the only one still married. He didn't move right away. For a moment, we just stood there in the kitchen, the pasta still simmering, the air thick with garlic and betrayal. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock above the fridge. 8:42 p.m. A completely ordinary time for a life to fall apart. Tonight. Ethan repeated like maybe he'd misheard me. Yes. Tonight. His jaw tightened. You're overreacting. That word. Overreacting. Like this was about dishes left in the sink. Like I had caught him texting someone harmless. My hand started shaking then. Not from sadness, but from the audacity of it. She's 12 weeks pregnant, I said evenly. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a second life. He dragged a hand down his face. I was going to fix it. How? Yes. Time travel. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked past me and headed upstairs. I heard the bedroom closet slide open. Hangers scraping across the rod. Drawers opening and closing. Each sound felt final. I stayed in the kitchen for a while, staring at the pot on the stove. Then I reached over and turned the burner off. It felt symbolic somehow, like shutting down the version of me who cooked dinner while her husband built a future somewhere else. I didn't cry. Not yet. When he came back down 20 minutes later, he had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The same one we used for weekend trips. Trips that apparently weren't always with me. He stopped near the doorway. Where am I supposed to go? He asked. The question almost made me laugh again. I assume she has room. He flinched at that. This doesn't have to end like this, he said. We can figure something out. There is no figuring out, Ethan. There's a child on the way. He hesitated like he was waiting for me to soften. Cry. Beg. To offer therapy or forgiveness. I didn't. Are you in love with her? Asked again. This time he didn't dodge it. I don't know, he admitted. That was worse than yes, because it meant he was willing to find out. He shifted his weight. I never stopped caring about you. Caring isn't commitment, I said quietly. And I won't compete. The words surprised even me with how steady they sounded. He looked at me like he wanted to say something profound, something that would rewind the last hour. But there was nothing left to say. He walked out, and just like that the house felt enormous. The silence hit first, then the stillness. No humming upstairs, no footsteps, no shower running, just me. I locked the door after him and leaned my forehead against it. My body finally gave in. My knees buckled and I slid down to the floor. That's when the tears came. Not loud, dramatic sobs. Just quiet, uncontrollable shaking. The kind that empties you from the inside out. 6 years. Birthdays. Holidays. Inside jokes. Late-night drives. The dog we almost adopted but didn't. The baby we talked about someday. I stayed on the floor until my phone buzzed in my hand. It was my sister, Claire. I stared at her name on the screen. For a second I considered ignoring it, pretending everything was fine for just one more hour. But I couldn't carry it alone. Hey, I answered, my voice raw. She paused immediately. What's wrong? That's the thing about sisters. They know. I swallowed. He's having a baby. Silence. Then, excuse me. With someone else. Her breath hitched. Are you serious right now? Yes. I heard her moving around, probably grabbing her keys. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already in the car. That's Claire. No hesitation. By the time she arrived, I had moved to the couch. I hadn't turned on any lights. The house was dim, lit only by the street lamp outside filtering through the blinds. She walked in without knocking. I had given her a key years ago. She took one look at me and her face hardened. He's gone, she asked. Yes. She sat beside me and pulled me into her chest like she used to when we were kids. I didn't realize how badly I needed that until I felt it. He got someone pregnant, I whispered again, like saying it would make it more real. Claire's jaw clenched. I will ruin him. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Don't, I said softly. It's not worth it. She leaned back to look at me. Are you okay? Well, I will be, I answered instead. That night she stayed with me. We didn't sleep much. We talked in fragments about lawyers, about the house, about what divorce would look like. Divorce. The word felt foreign in my mouth. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the bedroom we once shared. His side of the bed was empty, cold. I stared at the ceiling for a long time before reaching for my phone. There were 3 messages from Ethan. Can we talk? I didn't mean for this to explode like that. Please don't make any big decisions yet. Big decisions. Like he hadn't already made one. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and searched for divorce attorneys in Chicago. The act felt surreal. Clinical. But empowering. By noon, I had scheduled a consultation. By 2 p.m., I had moved his remaining things into boxes and stacked them neatly by the door. By 4 p.m., I finally allowed myself to think about her. Layla. I didn't know what she looked like beyond the tiny profile picture on his phone. Blonde hair. Bright smile. Younger than me. Did she know about me when it started? Did she believe his lies too? Or had he painted me as the distant wife? The cold one. The problem. The thought stung. Around 6 p.m. my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me not to. Hello. I answered cautiously. There was a small pause. Hi, a soft female voice said. Is this Ava? My stomach dropped. Yes. Another pause. This is Lila. The world narrowed. For a second I couldn't breathe. I know this is probably the worst possible way to introduce myself, she continued quickly, her voice trembling. But I didn't know he hadn't told you. Of course he hadn't. You didn't know. I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. I thought you were separated, she said. He told me you were basically roommates. Roommates. Closed my eyes. He lives here, I said quietly. Or he did. Silence. Then I heard her inhale sharply. Oh my God. It wasn't fake. It wasn't smug. It sounded horrified. I swear, she whispered. If I had known. You're 12 weeks pregnant, I interrupted gently. That's not something you fake. She started crying then. And I didn't know what to do with that. Because suddenly, this wasn't just a story about betrayal. It was a mess of 3 people tangled in one man's lies. I didn't call to fight, she said through tears. I just needed to know if I was crazy. You're not, I said softly. There was a long silence between us. He's here, she admitted finally. That hit harder than I expected. He said he needed space, she added. I didn't realize that meant from the truth. I laughed bitterly. Get used to that, I said. We stayed on the phone longer than I thought we would. Not as enemies. Not as friends. Just 2 women trying to understand how the same man could fracture both their lives. When we hung up, I sat in silence again. But something had shifted. The pain was still there. The betrayal still sharp. But now there was clarity. He hadn't just lied to me. He had lied to her too. And for the first time since that Tuesday night, I didn't feel small. Felt awake. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the hurt and humiliation, a new thought formed. If he could build a second life in secret, then I could build a new one without him. The next morning I woke up before my alarm. For a split second I forgot. That fragile half-second between sleep and reality, where everything still feels intact. Then it rushed back in. Ethan. Layla. 12 weeks. I rolled onto his side of the bed out of habit. It still smelled like his cologne. I stared at the ceiling and let the anger settle into something steadier. Not explosive. Focused. Today was the lawyer consultation. I showered, dressed carefully. Not for him, not for anyone else, but for me. Navy blazer. Clean makeup. Hair straightened. Armor. If my marriage was ending, it wasn't going to end with me falling apart. The law office downtown smelled like coffee and polished wood. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic smile when I said I had a 10 a.m. with Ms. Harrington. I wondered if she could see it on my face. Ms. Harrington was in her early 50s, sharp eyes, calm posture, the kind of woman who had watched 100 marriages dissolve and no longer romanticized any of them. What brings you in? She asked gently once we were seated. My husband got another woman pregnant, I said plainly. No dramatics, no tears. She didn't flinch. How long have you been married? 6 years. Children? No. She nodded and started taking notes. Do you want reconciliation or resolution? The question surprised me. Resolution. Yes, I said after a moment. Resolution. We talked finances, the house, joint accounts, his retirement fund, the business trips that now made sense. She explained everything clearly, the steps, the timelines, the possible outcomes. When she finished, she looked at me over her glasses. Here's the part people don't like to hear, she said. This isn't going to be quick. And he may try to stall. He already is, I replied quietly. She nodded. Then we move first. For the first time since Tuesday, I felt control slide back into my hands. When I stepped outside the office, the air felt different. Cold but sharp in a way that cleared my head. My phone buzzed. Ethan. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally I answered. What? Said. Ava, please, he sounded tired. Can we meet? Just talk. There's nothing left to say. There is, he insisted. You're acting like this is black and white. It is, I said calmly. You're having a child with someone else. He exhaled heavily. I'm confused. No, I corrected him. You're exposed. Silence. That's not fair, he muttered. I actually stopped walking. Fair. I repeated. Fair would have been honesty. He didn't respond. Then he said something I hadn't expected. She called you. It wasn't a question. Yes. Another pause. She wasn't supposed to. I almost laughed. You don't get to manage the narrative anymore. He sounded frustrated now. She's emotional. She doesn't understand how complicated this is. She understands more than you think. That shut him up. Ava, he said softer now, almost pleading. I never meant for this to spiral. Closed my eyes. Meaning doesn't change consequences. I hung up before he could say anything else. That afternoon, I went home and began something I hadn't done in years. I opened the hallway closet. Inside were old photo albums, wedding pictures, our honeymoon in Maui, smiling faces under bright sunsets. I sat on the floor and flipped through them slowly. We looked happy. And maybe we were. That's what makes betrayal so disorienting. Doesn't erase the good memories. Just poisons them. I stopped at one photo, the day he proposed. He looked nervous, hopeful, completely sure. Or maybe I just believed he was. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lila. I hesitated before answering. Hi, she said softly. Hi. There was no tension this time. Just something heavy and shared. I told him I know, she said. And? He's angry. Of course he is. She sighed. He keeps saying he needs time. That he feels trapped. Trapped. The word irritated me more than I expected. Did you know about me from the beginning? Asked gently. There was a long pause. No, she said quietly. Not at first. That wasn't the whole truth. When? Pressed. She inhaled shakily. Around month 4. Closed my eyes. And you stayed? Yes. Honest. Why? Asked. Her answer surprised me. Because I thought he would choose me eventually. That hit somewhere deep. I understood that. Not because I excused it, but because I recognized the human instinct behind it. We all want to be chosen. He made you believe that? Asked. Yes. Of course he did. We sat in silence for a moment. Are you keeping the baby? Asked gently. Yes, she whispered immediately. I don't regret that part. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Then protect yourself, I said. Legally, financially, emotionally. You sound like you've already moved on, she said quietly. I haven't, I admitted. But I will. That night I did something small but powerful. I changed the Wi-Fi password. Then I logged into our joint bank account and transferred half of it into my personal one, as advised. Then I removed his name from the emergency contact list at my doctor's office. Each action felt like cutting another invisible thread. Around 9 p.m. there was a knock at the door. Froze. Then it came again. Already knew. Opened it. Ethan stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, looking exhausted. You changed the Wi-Fi password, he said. Yes. You moved money. Yes. He looked past me into the house. You're really doing this. I held the door halfway open. You're having a child with another woman, I said evenly. What exactly did you think was going to happen? He ran a hand through his hair. I feel like I'm losing everything. Something inside me finally snapped. Not in tears, not in rage, but in clarity. You lost me when you decided to build a second life, I said. I'm just the one who found out. He looked at me then, really looked like he was seeing me for the first time. Not the wife who cooked dinner. Not the woman who trusted him. But someone who would survive him. I don't want to be the villain, he said quietly. Then you shouldn't have written yourself that role. The words hung between us. I loved you, he said suddenly. Loved. Past tense. I know, I replied softly. That was the tragedy of it. I believed him. But love without loyalty isn't love. It's comfort. I'll send the paperwork soon, I added. He swallowed. So that's it. Yes. He nodded slowly, like he was finally accepting it. Then he did something unexpected. I'm sorry. And for the first time since Tuesday, I believed that part too. But apologies don't reverse pregnancies. They don't erase lies. They don't rebuild trust that was dismantled piece by piece over 12 months. He stepped back from the door. I never thought you'd walk away, he admitted quietly. I met his eyes steadily. You never thought I'd find out. And with that I closed the door. This time I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I walked to the bedroom, stripped the sheets off the bed, and opened the windows. Cold night air rushed in. Felt like the beginning of something. Not freedom yet. Not healing. But the first breath after drowning. And somewhere deep inside me, a quiet, steady voice whispered something I hadn't heard in days. You're going to be okay. The divorce papers were filed on a Thursday. I remember because it was raining. The kind of steady Chicago rain that turns the streets silver and makes everything feel cinematic. Like Heartbreak should come with background music. Ms. Harrington moved fast. Ethan was served by Monday. He called me that night. You couldn't wait, he asked, his voice tight. For what? I replied. Another surprise. He exhaled sharply. You're being cold. I almost smiled. No, I said calmly. I'm being clear. That conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. Clarity doesn't require long explanations. The next few weeks blurred into paperwork, emails, and uncomfortable silences. He stayed with Lila. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. But mutual friends talk. Apparently, things weren't as simple as he'd imagined. Lila was dealing with morning sickness, doctor appointments, emotional swings. Reality. An affair is exciting in secret. Pregnancy is permanent in daylight. I tried not to feel satisfaction about that. It wasn't my baby. It wasn't my life anymore. Still, sometimes at night when the house was too quiet, I wondered what he was thinking. If he missed me. If he compared us. And then I would stop myself. Comparison was no longer my job. One Saturday afternoon, about a month after everything exploded, I found myself standing in the nursery section of Target. I hadn't planned to go there. I was buying storage bins. But I wandered. Tiny socks, soft blankets, cribs in neat display rows. For a moment my chest tightened. Ethan and I had talked about this. Timing. Maybe next year. Next year had apparently come early. Just not for me. I swallowed the lump in my throat and walked away. That's when I saw her. Layla. She was at the end of the aisle, staring at a row of baby bottles. She looked smaller than I remembered from her profile picture. Ill, tired, and undeniably pregnant now. Her hand rested absently on her stomach. For a split second I considered turning around. But she looked up. Eyes met. Shock crossed her face. Then something else. Not guilt. Not defensiveness. Fear. I walked toward her slowly. Hi, I said. Her lips parted slightly. Hi. We stood there awkwardly between shelves of pastel packaging and soft lullaby music playing overhead. I didn't expect to see you, she said quietly. Neither did I. There was a long pause. She looked down at her stomach instinctively, like she needed to shield it. I'm not here to fight, I said gently. She nodded quickly. I know. You look tired. She gave a weak smile. Pregnancy isn't as glamorous as Instagram makes it look. Something about her honesty softened me. How are you? She asked hesitantly. The question surprised me. Getting there, I answered truthfully. She shifted her weight. He says you're being ruthless. I raised an eyebrow. I'm protecting myself. She nodded slowly. He's overwhelmed, she added. He didn't think things would escalate. I almost laughed. That seems to be a pattern. Her mouth twitched despite herself. Silence settled between us again, but this time it wasn't hostile. It was heavy, complicated. Do you hate me? She asked suddenly. The vulnerability in her voice caught me off guard. I studied her for a moment. Young, tired, carrying consequences bigger than both of us. No, I said finally. She blinked, surprised. I don't hate you, I repeated. I hate what he did. Her eyes welled up. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I believe that. That was the strange thing about all of this. The villain wasn't standing in front of me. He was somewhere else, still trying to convince himself he wasn't one. I should go, I said softly. Before I turned away, she said something that stopped me. He still talks about you. I didn't respond immediately. In what way? Asked carefully. Like he's not sure he made the right choice. The words landed like a pebble in still water. Ripples, but no storm. He doesn't get to be unsure anymore, I said calmly. That's the luxury of people who didn't break anything. She swallowed. I don't know if I can trust him either, she admitted. I looked at her, really looked. That's something you'll have to decide, I said gently. But don't ignore red flags just because you're carrying his child. She nodded slowly. There was an unspoken understanding there. Not friendship, not forgiveness. Just two women who had been told different versions of the same lie. I hope everything goes smoothly, I said quietly, glancing at her stomach. Thank you, she replied. And I meant it. Because whatever anger I had didn't belong to that baby. That night I felt lighter. Not healed, but lighter. Facing her had done something unexpected. It reminded me that I wasn't competing. I wasn't second place. I was simply done. A week later, Ethan asked to meet. Public place. Coffee shop. I agreed. Closure isn't something you wait for. Sometimes you create it. He looked older when he walked in. More tired. The confidence he once wore so easily was thinner now. Thanks for coming, he said. I have 15 minutes. He nodded. We sat across from each other like strangers who shared too much history. She told me you ran into each other, he said. Yes. He looked uncomfortable. What did she say? That she doesn't fully trust you. He winced. I'm trying, he muttered. Are you? Asked evenly. He met my eyes. I don't know how I got here. You made choices. He rubbed his temples. I felt stuck. With me? Asked. He hesitated. With life, he said finally. Ooh, work. Everything felt predictable. There it was. Predictable. I nodded slowly. You mistook stability for boredom, I said. And excitement for love. He didn't argue. I didn't think you'd actually leave, he admitted. That sentence told me everything. You thought I'd stay because I always had, I replied quietly. He looked down. I miss you, he said. The words didn't sting the way I expected, because I no longer needed them. I miss who I thought you were, I answered honestly. Silence stretched between us. I don't know if I love her, he said suddenly. That's not my problem anymore. He looked up, searching my face for softness. There was some. But not for him. I hope you become a better man, I said gently. For your child. He swallowed. And for me, he asked quietly. I stood up. That's no longer my responsibility. I walked out of that coffee shop without looking back. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared more about myself. That night, I stood in my living room, the same one where everything had shattered, and felt something new settle inside me. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. The marriage had ended. The betrayal had happened. The baby would be born. Life had split in two directions. And for the first time since that Tuesday night, I wasn't wondering what he would choose. I was choosing myself. Winter came quietly that year. The first snow fell in early December, soft and steady, covering the sidewalks outside my house like a clean sheet over something messy. I stood by the living room window with a mug of coffee in my hands, watching the world turn white. 3 months. That's how long it had been since that Tuesday night. 3 months since the phone buzzed on the counter. 3 months since I learned my husband had a pregnant girlfriend. 3 months since my life split in two. The divorce was almost finalized now. Papers signed. Assets divided. The house would be sold in spring. Clean lines. Legal endings. But emotional endings are never that tidy. I had started therapy in October. Not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want to carry silent damage into whatever came next. "You're grieving," my therapist had said during our second session. "I didn't lose a person," I replied. "You lost a future," she corrected gently. That one hit. I wasn't grieving Ethan as he was now. I was grieving the version of him I believed in. The version who talked about baby names with me. Who held my hand during scary movies. Who once drove 2 hours at midnight just because I said I missed him. That man either never existed or stopped existing somewhere along the way. In mid-December, I got a text from Lila. "He's in the delivery room." I stared at the message for a long time. It felt surreal, like hearing about a distant relative instead of someone who once shared my bed. I didn't respond immediately. Few hours later, another text came. "It's a girl." My chest tightened unexpectedly. A girl. I sat down on the edge of my couch and let that settle. Somewhere across the city, Ethan was holding his daughter for the first time. And for a brief, honest moment, I imagined him crying. Not because he missed me, but because becoming a parent changes something fundamental in you. Type slowly. "I hope you're both healthy." She replied almost instantly. "We are. Thank you." That was it. No drama. No resentment. Just a strange, quiet chapter closing. A week later, Ethan called. I almost didn't answer. But I did. "She's beautiful," he said without greeting. I could hear something different in his voice. Softer. Humbled. "I'm glad," I replied. There was a pause. "I didn't understand what responsibility meant before," he admitted quietly. I leaned back against the couch. "That realization is a little late," I said gently. "I know." Silence stretched between us. "I've been thinking a lot," he continued, "about how I handled everything." "That's your work to do," I replied. He exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry. Not just for cheating. For underestimating you. For assuming you'd stay no matter what." I didn't respond right away. Because for the first time I could hear that he meant it. "I hope you grow from this," I said finally. "For your daughter's sake." "And for you?" he asked quietly. I smiled faintly, though he couldn't see it. "I've already grown," I said. And it was true. January brought something unexpected. Peace felt less fragile. I rearranged the furniture in the living room. Painted the bedroom walls a lighter color. Sold the old dining table and bought one I actually liked. Not one we had compromised on. Small changes, but symbolic ones. One evening, Claire came over with takeout and wine. "You seem different," she observed, watching me move around the kitchen. "How?" "Calmer." I considered that. "I think I stopped asking why," I said. And started asking what now." She raised her glass. "That's growth." We clinked glasses. Later that night, after she left, I scrolled through my phone and paused on something I hadn't opened in months. My photography account. Before marriage. Before stability. Before predictability. I used to take photos constantly. Street corners. Sunsets. Strangers laughing in coffee shops. Somewhere along the way I stopped. Not because Ethan told me to, but because routine is quiet. And quiet can slowly erase parts of you. The next morning I picked up my camera. It felt unfamiliar in my hands at first. Then natural. I walked downtown in the cold, snapping pictures of snow-covered buildings, bundled-up couples, a little boy sticking his tongue out to catch snowflakes. Life. Still moving. Still beautiful. I posted one photo that evening. A black and white shot of a woman walking alone under a street lamp, snow falling around her. The caption was simple. "Starting over isn't failure. It's courage." Within hours, messages started coming in. Friends. Old classmates. Strangers. "You're glowing. Proud of you. Thank you for sharing." It wasn't about validation. It was about remembering who I was before I became someone's wife. In February, the divorce became official. No dramatic courtroom scene. No shouting. Just signatures and stamps. 6 years reduced to paperwork. When I walked out of the courthouse, I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant either. Felt free. Not in a reckless way. In a grounded way. That night, I lit a candle in my living room and sat quietly. I thought about that Tuesday night. The vibrating phone. The yellow heart emoji. The moment my world cracked open. If I could go back and warn myself, would I? Would I want to remain ignorant for a little longer? Well, because truth, no matter how brutal, is better than living inside a lie. My phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Someone had commented on my photo. Thank you. I needed this today. I just found out my husband cheated. I stared at the screen. Then I typed back. You will survive this. And you will come out stronger. Because now I knew that wasn't just a comforting sentence. It was fact. A week later, I ran into Ethan one last time. Not planned. Not dramatic. The grocery store. He had a baby carrier strapped to his chest. She was tiny, wrapped in pink. He looked up and froze. Ava. Hi. We stood there in the cereal aisle, strangers who once shared a life. She's beautiful, I said honestly. He looked down at his daughter and smiled in a way I had never seen before. Yeah, he whispered. There was no longing in me. No jealousy. Just distance. I'm glad you're doing well, he said. I am. And I meant it. We didn't hug. We didn't linger. We simply nodded. Two people who had once loved each other but no longer belonged in the same story. As I walked away, I didn't feel loss. Felt completion. That night, I stood by my window again. Snow was melting now. The city looked softer. 6 months ago, I had been a wife. 3 months ago, I had been a betrayed woman. Now, I was just Ava. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Because the worst moment of my life, the moment I found out my husband had a pregnant girlfriend, wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of me choosing myself.